Hey, Sarah.
Hi. What's going on? I jumped on and you guys were like so loud and I loved it so much. Like Bree let me in and like it just like blew my speakers out and I'm like, I'm so excited.
Perfect.
Welcome to the party.
You look gorgeous, Sarah. I love your hair. It looks awesome.
Well, there was all that talk about hair washing. I felt very
Hey, Sarah, which mug did you go with? Which mug are you?
Well-behaved women rarely make history.
There it is.
I got rid of the one with all the cuss words on it.
I busted out Star Wars today.
I like it.
All right,
A
so
little
I
boring.
am the stream host today, and I'm going to turn it over to our panelists very soon. So I'm Dr. Ruby Beaupre, assistant professor at Wichita State, and I'm a CrimCon board member. So I'm super excited to be part of this conference. This is the first ever virtual conference, and so we're really fortunate to have so many amazing panelists, and this particular panel I'm super excited about. So this panel will be a little different. They're not, they've arranged what they want to do for this 50 minutes, so I'm going to turn it over to them. But basically, if you have questions in the audience, you can ask through the Q&A. And that's what this will look like. And so feel free to ask questions throughout. And just remember to have fun. CrimCon is meant to be something different, something more fun and accessible. And so I'm super excited because this panel aligns with that perfectly. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists.
Good morning. I am Dr. Brenda Rowe from Texas A&M University, San Antonio. And today we're going to be talking about academic Twitter networking in criminology. And we have a lot of great criminologists here to speak with you today. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves as I call on them. I did pose some questions to the roundtable discussants to consider, and those include what have been your experiences with academic Twitter, facilitating networking in new ways that were not possible before? How has academic Twitter provided avenues for diversifying co-author networks? How is academic Twitter democratizing the discipline? How has academic Twitter empowered academics? And for academics who are not currently using Twitter, how can they get started on engaging with academic Twitter? And finally, what are your tips for how to effectively engage with academic Twitter? Now, discussants are also free to speak on any other related topics they want to that relate to our general topic of networking on academic Twitter in criminology. So what I'm going to do is give each discussant 5 minutes to introduce themselves and speak, give remarks on these topics. And then once we've gone through everyone, we'll open it up to questions from the audience and or more organic discussion among the discussants. So let's start with Christina.
Hey everybody, I'm Christina John. I'm an associate professor in the School of Criminal Justice at Michigan State University. And I would say about a year ago, I've had a Twitter account for, I don't know, probably a decade, but it sat there getting dusty. And about a year ago, I thought I need more diverse viewpoints in my life. I need to open up my bubble a little bit. And so I started following as many scholars as I could who were people of color, who were LGBTQ, who were Latinx. And it was great because suddenly, I have all these divergent viewpoints and interesting viewpoints in my feed, and I got to meet a lot of new people that way as well. In fact, I've added so many people that now Twitter has stopped me from adding anyone else. So shameless plug for followers. Apparently, the more people who follow me, the more I can keep adding because I don't want to get rid of anybody. But it's been a really great experience for me, not just because I feel like I have a better insight into other viewpoints, but I also have found some co-authors, mostly through the divisions of the American Society of Criminology. I want to give a special shout out to the Division on Queer Criminology, which should be formally approved in the next few days. The number of colleagues that I met there through the division that started out being just like Twitter friends is really amazing. And I have some new co-authors thanks to that. I've also found that academic Twitter can be a huge source of support. And I think this is really, really important because academic departments, as good as the best of them are still places that are very siloed. A lot of academics work from home. I mean, I know right now we all work from home, but even in a normal academic year, pre-COVID, I don't see some colleagues because they're either at home or even realistically working on a different floor. And I just don't run into them. And we don't have the kind of communication. We don't talk about what we're doing and what we're working on. And I think that's the nature of academe. And so having so many of these great connections on academic Twitter means I'm not only more productive, but I'm also like getting a lot of support from colleagues and a lot of encouragement. And I wish I had had that as an early career researcher. I'm glad I'm finding it now when I'm a little bit older, but I just really appreciate all of my colleagues. I'm also finding that it's a great way to meet prospective graduate students. So all the graduate students out there who are watching this, get on academic Twitter and just start following people in the departments that you're looking at, that you're thinking about for your graduate program. Some of the students who are applying, I feel like I already know them. And that's going to be great if they end up coming here, because then that's another co-author and another relationship and just another positivity that I've gotten out of academic Twitter. Oh, Brenda, you've muted yourself.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's
those were some great remarks
all the time these days.
Christina, that was some great remarks. Let's move on to Sarah.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am Sarah Daly. I'm an assistant professor at St. Vincent College. It's just outside of Pittsburgh. I research incels, so there's that. So academic Twitter for me has added this sense of like humor and camaraderie. So much of what we study is tragic and really like unjust and infuriating. So I almost feel guilty, right, in a sense, going out and having fun and talking about reality TV on academic Twitter. But so many people like in my Twitter sphere have shown me that we can appreciate each other, you know, and just laugh about things. So there's this sense of joy. Like I follow Breea and I like laugh and like everything that she posts, like to the point where I'm a little bit nervous that she's gonna think I'm like stalking her. But this connection to people in a fun way is great. But then also, like Christina said, there's this connection for people to support in our departments. So coming from a pretty small regional school that many people may not know, I've been able to connect with people like Eryn to say, hey, like I have these students, they're really interested in your program. So then they can make these connections too. And introducing students to people. So I've changed a lot of my syllabi since I've been on academic Twitter to assign readings from people who are on this panel kind of and beyond so that I can connect with them. So that way there's a face to the things that they're reading, right, to this important work. And I really hate to be like super gooey about this and like, but the people on academic Twitter that I know are like role models for really who I want to be as a professor or as a researcher or even like as a person, right? Like Eryn with her activism and supporting students that as a non-tenured faculty member, I might not necessarily feel empowered to do. Or like, you know, with Breea Beaupre and her like pedagogical tools and her skills that I can use. Like I've done the infographic assignment in class and my students loved it. So I'm gaining that, but my students are benefiting too. And then I'm on there like fangirling just people's work and their research. So like with Reveka, you know, and Danielle, I'm like, this is super cool. Like, I feel like I call you guys my Twitter friends, even though I've never seen you in real life. And then like I met, you know, Joan Antunes and Jordana Navarro, like, and we just talk about all these things. So it's amazing. But not only that, like Christina said too, that we've collaborated. So I work with Brenda. We met like Ashley Blinkhorn and Manish, and we're doing this project. And Jackie Schildkraut and I are now starting this journal, which, oh my God, right? And then like Reveka's on my YouTube channel. I feel like this is like Academy Awards acceptance speech. I'm just like thanking everyone. But even like Andy Wilczak too, you know, like we created like this memorandum of understanding between our two colleges. So this is really benefiting, again, our students. But most importantly, I think, like Christina said, it's this positivity and this empathy and this support, like during a pandemic, that in the time since I've been a PhD student and in the 4.5 years as an assistant professor, I have threatened to quit very often. I've threatened to burn a lot of things down. I won't, to my FBI friends who are watching, or that I'm just gonna like quit and go teach Spanish or wait tables again. Like, this is awful. Academia is disgusting. It's patriarchal. I hate everyone. But this group on academic Twitter is a group of people who understand. So it makes me really, I think, optimistic for the future, which most people would never, ever say about me. But that the future is just really bright because there's still a lot of work to do, but it's in good hands with the people who are on Twitter, and there's a sense of alliance. So I'm grateful to academic Twitter every day, and the people on this panel and those who aren't.
Thanks, Sarah. And now let's hear from Breea.
Hey, good morning. I'm Dr. Breea Willingham, and I am an associate professor of criminal justice at SUNY Plattsburgh. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not a criminologist. I just play one in academia. My PhD is actually in American Studies. So I am an interdisciplinary scholar at heart, former journalist, or as I like to say, a recovering journalist. So yeah, so that's just full stop. I'm not a criminologist. Nothing against it. I just like to, tell people, what I am and what I am not. But interesting thing about academic Twitter is it found me. Like, I wasn't even looking for it. Like, I had another Twitter account that, that's supposed to be the fun one, and then I created, at Dr. B Willingham, because I was supposed to have a professional one. But for me, I am who I am, and I am not the the stereotypical, uptight, stuffy academic. I don't like them, right? So I never tried to be one of them. And so what happened was, with the professional Twitter account, it kind of merged with the fun one. And I think in the beginning I was, just tweeting about the work that I do. But then after a while, I was like, nix this. And so I just started being me on the professional account. And then I started seeing the hashtag academic Twitter. And I was like, oh, okay, so what's this? Am I supposed to use this when I tweet something academic? I don't know. And then next thing I know, I was being followed by, all of these other academic criminologists, and then learning, other people's work was, similar to what I do. Like Breea and I, we are just, with similar names. We also have similar reasons why we got into the work that we do. And it was kind of weird reading her bio. I was like, her name is Breea. I'm Breea. Like, what's going on here? So anyway, so you just kind of find other people who are doing the similar work that you're doing. And and then just meeting other women in the field, and regardless of our racial backgrounds and racial differences, so some of the underlying issues that we experience as women in academia. And so yeah, so that's kind of how I fell into it. I and it's interesting though, looking at the panel, and still being the only Black face on this panel. And so I would love to see more Black women in these spaces, because if you know me, I'm all about the Black, right? And so one thing that I have been able to do on Twitter is meet other Black academics, as we call ourselves, and hopefully be a mentor, if not directly, but through some of the things I say, to other young Black women who may be struggling in their PhD programs. And I did meet one young woman named Andrea. I hope I'm saying her name right. It's either Andrea or Andrea. and she emailed me on Twitter once and asked for some advice, and so we had a conversation. And so, you know, more things like that I would like to see with academic Twitter. But yeah, so far it's just been, you know, it's been fun for me. It's nothing heavy. You know, I like to keep it light on Twitter because, you know, real life is a bitch, you know. So yeah, that's me. That's what I do.
Thanks, Breea. All right, next we'll go to Eryn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eryn O'Neill. I'm an assistant professor at Sam Houston State University in my 5th year. What really I want to talk about is how academic Twitter has helped empower me through learning different models of being a professor by following people who I deeply respect. You know, when you're a graduate student, and I'm still pretty new in my career, I'm in my 5th year, you're kind of fed a very specific model of what it looks like to be an educator. And over my training, I was always told that there was kind of, you had to put the activism side of yourself away or do it in isolation because it would make your students, colleagues, you know, other faculty think that the way in which you teach is biased, that if you talk about, you know, women's rights, Black liberation, the presidential election, I mean, anything that is quote unquote controversial in the classroom, that it will somehow undermine your authority or your ability to teach effectively. And this never sat right with me. And having been born and raised in Los Angeles, when I moved to Texas, it was a pretty big culture shock to me, just in the types of people that I was around, the types of ideas that I was around. And, you know, I asked my mentor, Cassia Spahn, her opinions on whether I should bring my full self to the classroom. And she pretty much said, yes, you should, you know, start making mistakes now and learn from those mistakes, but be authentic. So I took that with a grain of salt because I was scared and a new assistant professor. And, you know, my first year helped some students on campus organize a blackout game in the wake of Freddie Gray's death. And it was scary because I was a first year assistant professor and I didn't really know how activism would be viewed on my campus. I did it. It was received both positively and negatively, but then I think that I kind of retreated a little bit because I was nervous about backlash, about tenure, about really just the optics of this new faculty member coming into Sam Houston State University and then really helping students agitate and activate. Then, you know, I kind of, like Christina, had a very dusty Twitter and kind of resurrected it during COVID because I was feeling very lonely and very helpless and hopeless, actually, and found people like Breea, found people like Sean Wilson, found people like Jason Williams, and really was inspired to know that there was a different model of being an academic, that you could seamlessly meld the activism and the scholarship in ways that not only empower yourself, but empower your students. And that is what I have taken the most away from academic Twitter. And I know this is a very narrow conversation, but it really has made a difference in my life. And I absolutely believe it has made a difference on campus and in my students' lives. I have received more than 20 emails from students thanking me for just being visible on Twitter and supporting movements that directly impact their lives. I've received DMs and requests for Zoom meetings with LGBTQ students, Black students, marginalized students who feel that they can come to me because of my authentic presence on Twitter. And so, you know, one of the questions that Brenda posed to us is, what are your tips for effectively engaging with academic Twitter? And I would say, you know what, when push comes to shove, just be your authentic self, because in reality, I arrive for the students and my colleagues who are picking up what I personally, Eryn Nicole O'Neill, am putting down. Everybody else, you know what, if they don't want to pick up what I'm putting down, that's okay. But this has helped me create a network of academics who have similar ideologies as me and, you know, who help encourage me walk the walk that I want to walk and help students walk the walk that they want to walk. And with that, my time is up. Thank you.
Thanks, Eryn. Now let's go on to Danielle.
Good morning from the West Coast. It's nice to see everybody. I'm Dr. Danielle Slakov, and I am at Sacramento State University. It is my first year here. So yeah, so pretty new here, moved during a pandemic. So I did want to say a couple of things. So first, I started Twitter in April, I think 2019. So I haven't been on all that long because I felt really isolated as an early career academic in my first academic job. That's why I started it. And I really think it's broken down a lot of barriers to networking, especially for people like me who always felt really intimidated at conferences to go join a group of people that are talking already. I always felt scared to do that. So I also found, and forgive me, I can't remember who said this about conferences and academia being somewhat siloed, but I definitely felt that at conferences and things like that. So it has been an amazing opportunity to talk to people all over the world and all over the country about academia. I also find that I learn about the newest and coolest pedagogical tools, research on Twitter, and that is one of my favorite things about it, is seeing what is accepted, what is coming out very soon. I absolutely love that about Twitter. At this point, I have co-authored things with people I met on Twitter that I don't know otherwise. I have seen calls for papers, calls for conferences, things that I don't know that I would have seen otherwise. I have found writing groups, which for grad students and early career researchers, people looking for that accountability. I found writing groups on Twitter that I was part of, which has been huge for my productivity. I've also made podcast appearances. I know Sarah is starting an awesome channel. I've made those connections on Twitter. So there's a lot of those types of professional opportunities that I have found. I did want to give some tips for people that maybe are not on Twitter. How do I start? This is what I did. I have no idea if this is the right way to do it. But personally, I searched my research areas in the Twitter search bar. So I searched media criminology, I searched feminist criminology, violence against women. And then what happened is that the bios that have those terms in it popped up. And so those were the first people I followed, were people that do similar research. And the cool thing, at least I found, is that most of them tend to follow you back if they see that you have similar research interests. So that's how I started. I didn't start with any particular university or anything. I just searched those terms. Okay, so this is just me speaking for myself, but I have noticed that radical honesty on Twitter, whether it's positive or negative, tends to be very well engaged with when you talk about posts that people respond to. And I know for me, I'm really open about article rejections, things that I feel like I thought were really rare, but actually are super common in our field. And that's a big part of what I view Twitter as, is demystifying academia, especially for people that have no idea, have no idea. I could talk to my parents or my mom about it, but she has no idea what I'm talking about when I tell her about that feeling of having an article rejected. So I have found that support to be really important. I do want to say, and this is something that I think may come up in Q&A, I do think that there is a fear about saying things when you are a precarious academic. And that is something that I'm constantly weighing. I'm just being very honest about that. So I wanted to bring that up because I do think, especially if collegiality is written into your tenure and promotion materials, it's something to consider, unfortunately. And I just think that I felt like I needed to at least address that or bring it up for people. So thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. And now Reveka.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reveka Stone. I'm at Suffolk University in Boston in the newly renamed Department of Sociology and Criminal Justice. I apologize if you can hear my bulldog snoring in the background. I don't even remember when I joined Twitter, but I actually was on Twitter under a different handle at one point that was sort of mostly personal stuff, but my real name was in my Twitter handle, so you could figure out who I was. And at one point I had a tweet, really benign tweet, like about how academic conferences should be more public, and like we should go out and talk to people in the public more, not just be in these hotel rooms where you can only go if you have a badge. And it went really viral. It was liked 45,000 times. And then I freaked out and I deleted that account, which is not what you should do if you're trying to build like a platform on Twitter. But it was suddenly way more public than I was prepared to be. And I just got super uncomfortable and I deleted it. And then I made the account that I have now with this idea that it would be like only professional, right? And then as a number of people have commented already, that's super boring. And it's not how you really make connections or like show up and bring your whole self. Like I've connected with the people on this panel because yes, we have similar professional interests, but also we like dogs and we like going hiking and we like watching the same TV shows. And that's where we form friendships that then deepen the network connections. So I just wanted to second folks like Breea and Eryn and Danielle talking about like being honest and showing up and bringing your whole self and being authentic. And I just saw an article the other day that said that people who are authentic online have like better mental health. So this is now evidence-based and you can take that to the bank, right? So as research is. So showing up and being authentic online. But I personally love Twitter for the interdisciplinary connections. I'm an interdisciplinary scholar. I work in a weird space, so sort of criminal justice and social and public health. It's been hard to find a home because our discipline, even though criminal justice is an interdisciplinary discipline, which makes no sense, we still publish in disciplinary journals, we still have discipline-specific conferences. And so you're not really going to go to ASC and necessarily meet a ton of people working in other disciplines. You might meet some, but it's still kind of a disciplinary conference. So when I publish something that sort of spans a couple of disciplines, I found that sharing it on Twitter using a couple of key hashtags actually puts me in touch with a way broader audience than I might normally that might normally access that article or reach out about it. And that's been really good. So when I think about academic Twitter, I think a lot about horizontal versus vertical networking. So we're often encouraged to network vertically, and academia can be very hierarchical that way, right? You've got to like grovel at the knees of senior elite people, and that's how we're taught to network. I've found that very ineffective and not productive. What has been way better is horizontal networking and building relationships with people at my same or similar career stages, because to quote a great musical, they are young, scrappy, and hungry, right? They need the pubs, they need the grants, they need to get out there. And so they're way more productive partnerships. It's good to have people up the chain to mentor you, but as far as like who's going to be in the field as you go along, it's your peers now. So networking on Twitter that way has been super useful as well. Some advice for people, excuse me, for people getting started. I think a mistake that people make is they join Twitter and they just start broadcasting their work. Again, that's kind of boring. Like Twitter is about engagement. Don't just use it to broadcast. Don't only log on to Twitter to share the paper that you just published, because like I can see that in a journal table of contents. What is better, I think, is to engage with people. And a couple of people have brought this up, but I think doing that authentically and doing that positively is key. Do not sink into the negativity and the snarkiness that can be out there, because you never know if you're going to snark at the wrong person, right? You never know if you're going to go after the wrong person. Just don't. Bring positivity to Twitter and make it a better space for everyone. And that's what I love about the folks on this panel, especially folks like Danielle and Breea, who are just so honest, but still so positive and optimistic about what it's like to be an early career scholar. That's why people follow them, to hear that stuff and to get the support, but also be uplifted. So bring your positivity, be honest, but don't get into like the back and forth and the like hot take culture that can be on there, because I think that's just a bad way to go. That's my time.
Thanks, Reveka. And finally, Reveka.
Hi guys, so I'm Reveka Shteynberg. I know that's a mouthful for those who don't know me, which is why actually my Twitter handle is not my name, because people can't spell that. So that's decision one, right? Figure out your handle. But I'm an assistant professor at Cal State San Bernardino. I'm probably the most like noob, quote unquote, of the folks here on this panel, these like rock stars, right? I am a self-proclaimed like Twitter lurker transitioning into Twitter engagement, right? So I am kind of like the people that like where they were a year ago, I am like this fall. I really kind of, when I first joined Twitter, it was about, I want to say 2 years ago. And I did it just so I could follow different organizations. To me, it was like, you know, how you can create all these blogs and websites. To me, it was that. I was following criminal justice organizations. I was following scholars. For me, it was, you know, sheriff's departments, police departments, every criminal justice organization, political organization, everyone I could think of that like just in one space. So if I saw a press release, if I saw a new report, it would all just kind of come to me, right? So it was never really about me posting anything. Like that was never my goal. In fact, I was like, I have a really unique name. You search me, you find me. Like anything I put out there, it's out there forever. Like you're gonna find it. And so that's kind of where I think Danielle's comment of like, you have to be somewhat weary of what you're gonna comment, especially as like a grad student potentially on the job market. So I think that there's kind of a level of understanding where you are and what you can say, but also just comfort level. Like, are you comfortable speaking out in like public spaces? Like people who know me know that I'm fairly extroverted, but I'm actually more of an ambivert. Like if I know you, I know you. Like we're going for it, right? But if I don't know you, like there may not be part of that, right? So part of it is just kind of getting comfortable with it. And so COVID, I think, has really revolutionized academia in a really weird way. And there was a question about equalizing, right? And I think that's kind of where I'm going with this, but separate, right? Because people who normally would never have gone on Twitter have joined Twitter. And I know that because they've told me, and they're like, I'm lonely, I'm going on there. So you see these like rock star academics on there, and then you see people who are early career researchers and you see them interacting. And I think in a way, you know, if we're at a conference, we're mimicking essentially those hallway conversations. We're mimicking those after and before panel chit chats, or that like we're waiting for the panel to start and we're conversing. And instead of just doing that like once or twice or 3 times a year in these like big bursts, it's just all like all the time, right? You can have access to that. And I think that that's a really, really unique aspect that we don't normally get. And I think that horizontal networking that Reveka was talking about is so important. I have amazing mentors, right? Like I am so freaking fortunate, but they also have limited time and they have new students, which is great. But like, I want to learn from other people, and people are talking about, you know, learning for pedagogical reasons. I have learned so much, right? Academics, there's very little training on how to be a good teacher. We go to all these training seminars. I mean, I think my university is making me do like 4 hours a week now, which is crazy. But I've learned so many amazing things. I mean, Breea especially, like I created a syllabus website and my students love it. I started using that infographic. I started using media assignments that other people were sharing, and students are enjoying that, especially in this online world, right? Where everything is just a writing assignment. They're having so much fun with it, creating memes and then writing about them, applying theories, right? There's so many cool opportunities. I think another aspect is that it's really easy to kind of slide into people's DMs. And like, that's my like, right, that's what like the kids are saying these days. Whenever you have a good idea. So I have engaged in like, I think now I'm on like 3 different co-authorships with people that I engage with on Twitter. People that I normally would have never had known, right? Just at all known them. I think one paper, right? Andy, the guy who organized this thing, he was like, hey, it would be cool if someone studied this. And I was like, I have a little bit of startup money. You wanna do this? And then Jackie was like, so do I. I have a little grant money. And then now we're like working on like a 3-part project. So like, there are so many great ways to see all these things, right? Same thing with Danielle. I'm actually in one of the same writing groups as her. Maria Holman, terrific, follow her. She's not a criminologist. Go beyond criminology, right? Follow all the different disciplines. Raul Pacheco, I mean, he has such amazing resources. If you have grad students, give them his website. Like seriously, they will thank you backwards and forwards. You know, there's a lot of formal and informal training going on too, just from seeing all these tweets and posts that I think is just amazing, right? As someone who, I have amazing colleagues in my department, I love them, but at the same time, they're not going to like walk me through step by step how they're doing things. But people on Twitter are sharing all that. And I love that. And you're seeing all these articles, and that's terrific, or you're seeing them share these things. I think that kind of gives us an opportunity to go beyond the status quo. And also something that I'm really passionate about is public scholarship. Like, to me, like, I don't want to be publishing into a silo. I quite frankly, like, it's great to publish in a top journal, but if no one's going to read it except like a bunch of other academics, is it worth my time? And I don't think that that's fully there, right? Like, much of my research is very policy level, reform based. And so I want it to be out there. So, you know what, tag those organizations when you, share that article, but tag the relevant organization that's actually going to think about it and thank you for that research, because they normally would never, ever think about it, right? So use your platform to really kind of amplify and connect the dots for people. And also just be more interactive. Like, I love GIFs or GIFs. I don't know. There's like a whole debate. I don't care which one you use. But like, for me, I honestly, like, that's one of my favorite parts of Twitter. And like, just, you know, the authentic self thing is so very true. It helps us kind of gain better perspectives. And I'll leave with just this one thought. I am not technically a first generation student, but my parents didn't grow up in this country. So yeah, they have higher level degrees, but they have no clue how to, like, I have to translate things for them, right? Like, English, not their first language. And so when I was going through school and then grad school, everyone's like, well, you have parents with college education. I'm like, yeah, from the Soviet Union. Like, things were very different back then. I am the only person in my family who has a social science background. Everyone else is like an engineer or IT. Like, they have no idea what I'm doing. Like, right? So like, this helps even that playing field and give that perspective from others kind of in the trenches, both in the academic world, but also in the policy world, which I just think is cool. So anyway, I'm just happy to be here, and thank you everyone for organizing this, because I think this is so cool.
Thanks, Reveka. So I guess I'll give a few remarks before we open it up to questions. So I am an associate professor. I think this is the beginning of my 8th year. I'm losing track. And I've always been kind of anti-social media. I don't know if I can admit that here, but until recently, I wasn't on social media. I had done Facebook a million years ago, but I got off of it like about 10 or 11 years ago and never looked back. Like, my life got better after that. I don't know. It was such a time suck that I just, you know, and I don't know, too much drama, too much, you know, I don't know. I just walked away and like was happier. So I never really got on other social media, Instagram or any of that stuff. I don't know how any of that stuff works. I mean, I guess I'm not young enough for all that. But yeah, so I decided to try Twitter. I guess it was around maybe February of this year, January, February. And I initially started tweeting because I thought, well, I'm going to, you know, use it to announce things when they're published or whatever, which of course, you know, I quickly realized was boring, right? But, you know, then the world started coming to an end, and, you know, the pandemic happened, and I ended up following lots of specialists in epidemiology, virology, aerosol science. Like, so I found it was a great tool to learn from the top minds in these fields about something that was happening, you know, that we all needed to get information about. And I actually spent the summer on a task force that was planning for how to do things safely this fall at my university. So planning things like, how are we going to sanitize things? What are we going to do about the air quality, et cetera. So it was super useful, actually, getting to collect all this information. But then, you know, once things started settling down a bit, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to use this more for my original purpose. And I started exploring different ways to use it, you know, to connect with other academics in my field and related fields. And I've really found it's been a blessing. I have gotten to know a lot of people I wouldn't know otherwise. Hopefully, when things go back to normal, I will recognize more faces at conferences from people that I've been interacting with on Twitter. And like one of our panelists said, you know, you won't have that awkward, how do I join this conversation? Because you'll already see some familiar faces. So I'm looking forward to that. I have started some collaborations with people that I only know through Twitter, including Sarah and our co-authors we're working on some research that's actually gonna be presented tomorrow by a grad student, Ashley Winghorn, who's on this project with us, on COVID-19 related things. And so it's been great, you know, having these new collaborations. I'm actually trying to get something off the ground with Andy, the organizer of CrimCon, that we're going to work on. So it's definitely great for forging collaborations. I've been aware of new research a lot earlier. I'll see people posting about things that are still in progress. So normally you wouldn't find out till you see it hit the table of contents of the journal, right? But now I'm seeing people talking about research that they're conducting or posting preprints. And so I'm finding out about things quicker, finding out about special issues, grant opportunities, fellowships, et cetera. So there's really a lot of great things to be said about Twitter, and you know, just feeling less alone, getting great tips, great pedagogy tips. There's just so many good things happening on academic Twitter that I finally stopped hating social media. I found the one that's right for me, I guess, finally. And that's as one of my children says, the nerdy side of Twitter. Academic Twitter is definitely the place to be, I think. So as far as tips, I would say, of course, you know, you can start by looking for names you recognize in your field and following, you know, seeing who they're following, and going from there, you can kind of branch out. But also, you know, following some of the other academic, just general academic accounts like PhD chat, academic chatter, things like that. And just a little tip, on Fridays, you'll see people using the hashtag Follow Friday. Join in on those. You can get lots of new followers that way. You can find new people to follow. So I've just participated in a lot of those kinds of things. And I'll also give a shout out to Crim Ferret. I don't know if anyone here isn't following him, but you really need to, because he is great about notifying you about all the new research that's coming out. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the questions here. So the first question we have is, I hear people looking for academics who are similar, but how can we prevent academic Twitter becoming an echo chamber for criminologists? My biggest fear is becoming stagnant in my academic thinking and network. I feel like I have to reach outside of Twitter to find alternative viewpoints. Okay, so how can we prevent us from becoming too siloed within criminologists? I'm going to open that up to any of the panelists.
Well, I think a lot of us already in some ways address that when we talk about just being your authentic self. And I don't think any of us on this panel here is, I don't think neither of us have pigeonholed ourselves as just one thing. And so, you know, well, first of all, you can, if you're not already following all of us, that's what you need to do. That's where you need to start, is just to follow us, first of all. Second of all, just be open. Just be open to, you know, to following different people and to broadening your own horizons. I mean, it's not just a Twitter thing, that's a personal thing. And so you just, you know, like I said, just be open, and, you know, and really just be chill. I think, you know, so many people think as soon as you say the word academic, you know, automatically is, oh, you know, it's all stuffy and stuff. And just chill with it, you know, fall back. Just, you know, just exhale, be real. I mean, if you've learned nothing from this whole pandemic stuff, it's just, you know, life is too short. You know, why spend the last of our days being just in one little box? Just, you know, just fall back and chill. That's my advice.
I'm going to follow up on that real quick and just ask all the panelists if you can put your Twitter handle in the chat for people that want to follow us, in case it's not that easy to find us. I'll get us started there. Oh, oops, I did it privately. I gotta.
Yeah, to follow up on what Breea was saying, I think that criminologists are probably in the minority of people that I follow on Twitter, because I am so interested in the work that's happening in other fields, and I find it super inspirational. I find it, it gives me idea. I see what people in totally unrelated fields are looking at, and the way my brain works, I just start making like analogies to things that I know about. You know, when you get new information, you're like, how does that fit into what I know or don't know? And then like, how would that be relevant for the topics that I study? And it actually makes me feel more engaged with my research and like topics that I might pursue. I find the same thing from like watching TV shows and reading fiction too. I think that if you only read work in your discipline all the time and you don't have those hobbies, and like talk to non-academics and talk to like people working in different fields of practice on Twitter, that's how you have any idea of what's actually going on out there and what other people are doing, and new ideas that you can pursue, rather than always, I think, following the tail of someone else. Like, this is the way you get new ideas and actually make a new path forward for yourself, right? And lead, rather than always feeling like your work is like following someone else who's like leading. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, you try to find, I look at people that I really respect. Like, I love following Tressie McMillan Cottom, who's a sociologist, and probably a ton of you guys. And I look at her, I'm like, what did she do? She found a topic that was really important to her, that she had experience with, and she like owned it and pursued it. And probably at some point people told her that it was a no-go or no one would be interested in that, but she chased it down anyway, and look what she's done with it, right? Brought it into the public conversation. And that's inspirational to me. So I don't worry too much about like Twitter closing me off. I actually think it fights off the closing off that academia tends to do to us anyway, if that makes any sense.
Okay, great. Let's address
Can I add to that just briefly?
Sure, go ahead.
So I think in a way it actually opens it up a little more. And there's definitely, I was thinking about this earlier today too, about how we could end up basically accidentally not building an echo chamber, but basically building a network where we're always having the same people kind of doing things, right? We're basically going to create another tier. And I think that that's something that can be easily kind of addressed, because people pose opportunities on there and a lot of people feel uncomfortable volunteering themselves for it. But like, I have no shame. So, I mean, I have shame, but I don't have shame in a lot of ways, right? Like, I'll shamelessly plug things. And so like, I just like message them like, hey, this seems really cool. Can I do that? Or like, I'll volunteer, right? And like, maybe I don't always have the capacity to do it, but if I can, I think that's a way to help with it. And also to encourage other people to join Twitter and to tag other people for opportunities, right? Tag your grad students, tag other people who maybe don't always post on there, to get them comfortable, because then it doesn't become an echo chamber. And I think that really kind of helps with that effect. So if you have a voice, use your voice to help others gain their voice.
Okay, and I want to go on another question before we run out of time. So someone asks, do any of you get backlash from people for your criminological tweets, especially on hot topics? Are you ever afraid to tweet certain things based on the fear of other people's reactions?
Nah, I don't. I'm not afraid. I mean, you know, whatever. People are going to say what they're going to say anyway. And I haven't gotten none that I can commit to memory anyway, any backlash. But even if I did, it's, you know, I'm always like, bring it. You know, I'm always ready for a good fight. So say what you got to say.
I've had some colleagues make comments to me that I should tone it down sometimes on social media. And to me, that's like, you know, and those were, I was unhappy with those comments because, like Breea, I do think carefully about what I say, but I'm not afraid to say anything. Part of that is that I'm tenured, and so I don't have to be. But if you're gonna tell me to tone it down, then tell me in the environment where I made that comment. Don't come and talk to me in my office about it, I guess, because I do think that there are a lot of people in our field who, like Eryn, you know, just to go back to her comments, who avoid controversy, who avoid the appearance of bias, who avoid advocacy. We have to speak out when we know that there's injustice. The word justice is right in there, right? And so the more that we kind of fear speaking, the more the system keeps working in the way that it does. And if I can just add on really quickly, I know we're almost out of time, but one of the things I was thinking about this morning while I was getting ready is that we are here, a group of women, talking about something that's not necessarily a women's issue. Because usually when you see panels like this, it's about gender, right? We are a group of women who are just talking about an issue. But it does kind of occur to me that most of the people I follow and see on Twitter are women or people of color or otherwise maybe people who aren't getting support that they need at their home department, maybe. So maybe it's that we are all women because we all sought out this outlet, because we needed more support, more empathy, more empowerment. But I would just say for anybody who's watching this, bring this back to your home department and think about what your faculty and students need, and is your department providing those things? Yeah, okay, I think that's it. You got it out.
Yeah. Can I say something, Brenda? So,
Yes.
you know, to be really transparent, I have experienced backlash, not in my home department, but on other sites online where people have, you know, said really insulting things about me personally and professionally due to quotes that I've made or tweets that I've made that have challenged the status quo. So to just be really, you know, transparent, with more love will always come more hate. And, you know, sometimes that can be really hard to manage and really hard to emotionally deal with. But at the end of the day, I just try to tell myself that those aren't the people that I'm showing up for. And the reason that they don't like me is because I'm saying something that rubs them the wrong way, but it rubs them the wrong way for all the right reasons, right? And so I try to, you know, just really, I don't engage. I will not really engage. It rarely happens on Twitter, because when it did happen once on Twitter, 500 of my students came to my aid and pretty much, you know, forced the person to take down the tweet via the internet. And so I just don't go to those sites that are talking negatively about me. I saw it once, I haven't been back, and that helps my mental health. You know, I don't know if you saw the SNL that had the, oh, her name escapes me, the insecure actress. What's her name?
Issa Rae.
Yes, Issa Rae. And she said, like, people were talking bad about me on the internet. And guess what? I just, oh no, oh no, oh no. Oh, wait, I can just put it down. And it actually doesn't affect my day-to-day life. You know, and so there will be backlash, but the reality is that the positivity and way outweighs the negativity in my experience.
Yeah, and Eryn, next time, let us know who we need to fight.
Brenda, do you mind if I add on very quickly to this question? I think it is a really important one. I think that for me personally, first of all, I think I'm a really positive person. So I very rarely post things that are negative, but the times that I have, there's usually been some sort of reaction to it. And I find that when I post about academia generally being a space that is misogynistic or racist or white supremacist, those are the types of tweets that I have gotten backlash about. And it's not generally about crim, it's generally about the field that we're in. And as somebody who, like I said, I don't really have anyone to talk to about it in my personal life, it's a space for me to kind of work through some of those things about academia that, to be honest, my mentor did a really great job of shielding me from as a grad student, that I'm now realizing as an assistant professor, to be very honest about it. So yeah, I think that for me personally, it's more about academia in general. Those are the types of comments that I make that I notice there's backlash of. And I think that it's just worth kind of noting that what we're speaking to is speaking of power and the way that power is held in our discipline and in our field.
Okay, I hate to bring this to an end, but I think it's time for the next group of panelists to be coming in and getting their stuff. So this has been a great conversation, and thank you all for agreeing to be part of this. I will just say, this was not a call put out exclusively to women. That's just who volunteered. It's also typical in academia, right? Yeah. The women end up doing the stuff. In fact, the same thing happened with the pre-conference panel that Andy put together. It ended up being all women. He didn't ask for all women either. That's just who agreed to do it. So it does say something about the fact that we're all women here. It probably says that we're agreeable to doing things, and also that we're the ones that really feel the need for this networking because our needs aren't being served in our home institutions. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today. And I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to get to all the questions, but please do follow us on Twitter and perhaps we can continue the conversation there.
Bye.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I have to close out this webinar because someone else is hosting the stream. So if you want to join for the next awesome roundtable, which I wish I could join, but I can't, feel free to log back in. So sorry, Sean, I'm gonna, oh, Jim, you're here? So you can just take over.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I think you can.
Don't we have to end? I think we have to end it.
Okay, because then it'll stop the recording too. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop it and then Jim will take over.